You are now listening to Mark's Unexplained World by Mark the Medium, available on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Prime, Podbean, and most other podcast platforms. Tonight's episode is about what happened to Snippy the horse. With graphic details of animal mutilation right from the start of this podcast, listener discretion is advised. So it's over to you now, Mark.
The term cattle mutilation, which is also known as bovine excision, unexplained livestock death, or animal mutilation, is the killing and mutilation of cattle under supposedly unusual bloodless circumstances. This worldwide phenomena has also been observed among other wild animals as well, including sheep, horses, goats, pigs, rabbits, bison, moose, deer and elk have all at one time or another fallen victim to this unexplained demise, with it even targeting domestic pets like cats and dogs. The common signature of this phenomena is that the animals have all been reported to have been mutilated with similar bloodless excisions, often with an ear, eyeball, jaw flesh, tongue, lymph nodes, genitals and rectum being removed. The mutilation of Snippy the horse, a 3-year-old Appaloosa mare from Colorado, was first widely reported on the 5th of October 1967 as one of these unexplained mutilated deaths. And although mainstream experts concluded that Snippy the horse died as the result of natural causes, sensationalized press and unsubstantiated folklore questioned whether his death and mutilation might have been linked to either a satanic cult or an intelligence operation or even an alien abduction. Greetings, Unexplainers. Thank you for tuning in once again and listening to this World of Wildlife episode of Mark's Unexplained World. My name is Mark Hughes. I'm a medium, a ufologist, a true crime buff, a man with a very dark and disturbed sense of humour who lets strangeness dominate his life because being ordinary can be quite dull at times. But to give you a better idea of what I do and who I am, every week, usually on a Monday night, though occasionally on a Tuesday, allowing for bank holidays and busy weekends, I do a podcast on the many wide and various subjects that fall under the Unexplained banner. These include ufology, hauntings, disasters, and all sorts of other paranormal phenomena, including true crime, unsolved crime, serial killers, and the occasional missing person that often goes unnoticed. So, if you are listening to this show on YouTube, please give us a review or an opinion of the episode subject that I can reply to, a thumbs up, and subscribe to my channel. Or, if you are listening on any of the other podcast platforms, again, give us a like and a follow. In this episode, I'm going to tell you about the sad but strange stories surrounding what happened to Snippy the horse. And this week's necessary disclaimer: this story is a tale that, with graphic details regarding animal mutilation and death, so may prove upsetting to some. Discretion is advised. Also, all opinions and comments are strictly my own, but the facts of the case remain. I also apologise if I pronounce anything incorrectly. My English, although it is my first and only language, wordsmiths everywhere are rewriting the dictionary for me as we speak. So, back we go to the story. Before I go into the story of Snippy the horse, I'm going to go into a little history regarding the phenomenon known as animal mutilation. Well, according to Wikipedia, the earliest known recorded outbreak of unexplained livestock deaths, or animal mutilation, which was noted in the official records of the Court of James I of England, occurred early in the year of 1606 around the city of London and some of its adjoining shires. According to reports, in some of these areas the slaughter of sheep, with some places numbering up to 100, were killed with nothing taken but their tallow, meaning their beef or mutton, and some inward body parts, but their carcasses and their fleece remained behind. It was felt at the time, although the phenomena was kind of odd, that maybe the sheep deaths were down to something simple like fireworks? I think it's worth me pointing out here that the one man who collected many accounts of cattle mutilations that occurred in England in the late 19th and 20th centuries was a gentleman named Charles Fort, which brings me nicely into a little bit of interesting trivia. Charles Hay Fort was an American writer and researcher who specialised in anomalous phenomena, with the terms 14 and 14er sometimes being used to characterise various strange oddities. Charles Fort's collections of scientific anomalies, including the Book of the Damned in 1919, influenced numerous science fiction writers with their scepticism, with the name 14 being used as a name for phenomena which seem to challenge the boundaries of accepted scientific knowledge, with the 14 Times Monthly magazine, which was founded as The News in 1973 and then renamed in 1976, investigating such strange phenomena. Come forward a few years to the 5th of October 1967, and the newspapers across the United States had published a sensationalized headline saying, and I quote,
"Flying saucers killed my horse,"
with newspaper accounts telling the story of Snippy, who was a 3-year-old Appaloosa mare that was stabled in the Harry King Ranch of Alamosa in Colorado. The press reported that on the 7th of September, Snippy the horse had failed to return to the ranch for her usual evening drink, which then prompted a search. Then, 2 days later, on the 9th of September, the rancher, Harry King, found Snippy the horse about a quarter of a mile away, both dead and mutilated. And again, according to the press, Harry King, who was the owner of the ranch where Snippy the horse was staying, found the animal not only completely skinned, but also with the meat of the neck and shoulders missing and leaving only bleached white bones. Harry King also described that the cuts on the flesh of the carcass were, and I quote, "completely smooth," with him also reporting that there was a total absence of any blood in the animal and on the ground, and an absence of any tracks around the dead horse. The following day, Harry King went back to the site with Snippy's owners, Burl Lewis, and his wife. Only this time, the site was now reportedly pervaded with what they described as a sickening sweet odour, with the once bleached bones of Snippy having now turned a bright pink. However, this bright pink didn't last too long, as by the 23rd of September that same year, the bones had then turned black. Mrs. Lewis, I apologise, also, when reportedly handling a piece of the dead horse's flesh, described it as feeling, and I quote,
sticky.
With her also reporting that her hand, after dealing with the dead horse's flesh, began to burn and turn red, with the burning sensation continuing until her hand had been washed. Bell Lewis and his wife then decided to phone the Alamosa County Sheriff, Ben Phillips, who then told the couple that the death was probably due to, and I quote, a lightning strike. Which was, of course, a strange conclusion to come to, considering that the Alamosa County Sheriff had never bothered to visit the site where the corpse of the Snippy the horse was found. After this first short break, in part 2 we will look at more details of the animal mutilation phenomena and what else was witnessed in the area of Snippy the horse's demise.
This show is brought to you courtesy of Neil Packer and the Haunted Antiques Paranormal Research Centre. Find them online at www.hauntedresearchcentre.com or at 9 to 11 Regent Street, Hinckley, LE10 1AW. Open on Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. for guided tours of the haunted rooms at just £3 per person. Booking is essential at all times, and over 16s only, please, unless accompanied by an adult. The haunted rooms are extremely haunted, and paranormal activity could and has taken place at any time. Some areas and particular objects or items can be quite scary and unnerving. Membership is available for £25 to qualify for selective offers. And why not download the app, available on both iOS and Android, for only $3.99. To keep up to date with what is coming up at the centre.
Since the discovery of Snippy the horse's carcass was found in 1967, many more cases of animal mutilation were reported worldwide, mainly in the Americas and Australia. In South America alone, there have been an estimated 3,500 incidents that have occurred since 2002, with mutilation investigators asserting that a large number of cases, perhaps no more than 1 in 10, never being reported to authorities. According to reports, cattle death due to natural causes is extremely common, with Minnesota, where the mutilations first began, losing nearly 2 million head of cattle during 1973, with waves of this phenomena being reported in places like Kansas, Nebraska, Colorado and New Mexico. In fact, during 1973, ranchers began reporting dozens of unusual cattle deaths, characterised by the absence of any sex organs, udders, tongues, anus, the rectum, and sometimes even the ears and or the eyes, with the cuts to remove the aforementioned body parts being described as clean and surgical. And another unusual thing about these animal mutilation cases is that the animals or carcasses were reported to have been drained of any blood, with no signs of the vital red stuff in the immediate area or even around their wounds. And just to add a little bit of statistical trivia at this point, according to a Howard Burgess, who was a doctor at the New Mexico-based Sandia National Laboratories, nearly 90% of these mutilated cattle are between 4 and 5 years old. In the April of 1973, sheriffs in western Iowa reported unidentified helicopters that were involved in cattle and pig rustling, and in the August of that same year, similar helicopter-based rustling was also reported in Missouri. So the authorities warned farmers, who by this point were getting both a little anxious and trigger-happy, not to fire on their helicopters. So, after coming under increasing public pressure, the federal authorities launched a comprehensive investigation into the animal mutilation phenomena, with Oklahoma convening a task force, the New Mexico Livestock Board seeking assistance from the Los Alamos Scientific Laboratory, and the Colorado Bureau of Investigation agents going undercover to investigate. Meanwhile, back in 1967, whilst in the area of Snippy the horse's demise, the ranch owner, Harry King, along with Snippy's owners, Burl Lewis and his wife, reportedly discovered indications of an aircraft landing with the immediate terrain featuring, and I quote,
circular exhaust marks and squashed bushes,
along with some circular indentations they found in the dirt. And it was later claimed that a Geiger counter reported high radiation counts around the exhaust marks in the ground and the flattened bushes. The press at the time also reported that Harry King's 87-year-old mother, Agnes King, claimed that a large object passed over the ranch's house the same day of Snippy the horse's disappearance, but she could not identify the object because she was not wearing her glasses at the time. However, it does appear, although there is no evidence for what Agnes King claims she saw, that other locals also reported UFO sightings from that day. Before we go into the second break, I just want to talk a little bit about the investigative journalist and ufologist Linda Moulton and her dealings with the Snippy the Horse case. Linda Moulton Howe, who was born on the 20th of January 1942, is an American investigative journalist and regional Emmy Award-winning documentary filmmaker who is best known for her work as a ufologist and advocate of a variety of conspiracy theories, including her investigation of cattle mutilations and the conclusion that they are performed by extraterrestrials and that the US government is working with aliens. In 1980, Linda Moulton produced a documentary film called A Strange Harvest, which suggested that unusual wounds found on cattle are the work of extraterrestrial beings who harvest body parts required for their survival or research, and that the US government is complicit, with her in 1981 becoming known as a staunch advocate for these ideas. She then began to focus on UFO conspiracy theories and speculate about the alleged connections between cattle mutilations, UFOs, and supposed government conspiracies, saying that, and I quote,
I am convinced that one or more alien intelligences are affecting this planet.
And although Linda Moulton claimed that she was shown secret documents after being taken into confidence by an agent of the government, the American writer and druid John Greer wrote that she presented no evidence for such claims other than, and I quote, very ambiguous evidence provided by rotting cow carcasses. One Idaho state director of the Mutual UFO Network, otherwise known as MUFON for short, called her, and I quote, the most preeminent UFO investigator in the world. And she was also named as one of the gurus of American ufology, although she herself has said that she regards herself as a television producer and an investigative reporter, with much of her work including speculations regarding the terms as unexplained phenomena such as cattle mutilation, crop circles, UFO sightings and alien abductions. Linda Moulton, because of her involvement with unexplained phenomena, was also a frequent guest on the paranormal talk show Coast to Coast AM for 28 years. First with George Norrie and then with Art Bell, but in 2019 she ended her monthly appearance. She has been interviewed on various other talk shows over the years, including Larry King's live specials, CNN, Sightings and Strange Universe, NBC's The Other Side, Britain's Union Pictures, BBC, the Discovery Channel's Special Evidence on Earth, Mysterious Origins of Man, and the History Channel television series Ancient Aliens. Linda Moulton also appeared on a panel at the UFO Disclosure Press event that was held at the National Press Club in 2013, saying she believed, and I quote,
alien technology appears so advanced.
She continues, and again I quote,
space and time could be bent by outer space travellers, therefore allowing extraterrestrials to visit Earth.
Linda Moulton still remains very active in the world of ufology and the unexplained, as she now hosts a weekly broadcast on YouTube and has been doing so since 2007. After this second short break, in part 3, we will look at Linda Moulton's involvement with the Snippy the horse incident, some of the more conventional explanations behind the animal mutilation phenomena, and a brief look at one of the only reported incidents of a human being dying in the same unusual circumstances.
Fright Nights was established in 1999 as the first company in the world to offer overnight ghost hunt experiences to the general public, pioneering paranormal events since the last century. Fright Nights operate at hundreds of the UK's most haunted and exclusive venues. All events have their own team of experienced paranormal investigators, mediums and psychics. They have a VIP members club for regular returning guests, offering loyalty discounts and exclusive invitation-only events. They can also host private events for your family and friends. You can contact them on 07 852 998 628 or email them at office@frightnights.co.uk. Or take a look at their website at www.frightnights.co.uk, where you can see the many locations they investigate and learn about them and the opportunities they have available. Hundreds of ghost hunters join Fright Nights every month for the most thrilling ghost hunting experiences they'll never forget. If you haven't been on a ghost hunt before, then why not join them to see what it's all about? Why not visit their social media sites for up-to-date information on all the places they visit and to see what's coming up in the future? They look forward to seeing you all soon. Fright Nights, Ghost Hunting Events. Remember, only the original will do.
Starting in the 1970s, the United States experienced waves of cattle mutilations that were similar to the death of Snippy the horse. Mutilation investigator and ufologist Linda Moulton revisited the Snippy the horse case, interviewing several witnesses for her 1989 book, An Alien Harvest. And according to sources, and just to put a small spanner in the works, it turned out during her research that Snippy the horse was not actually called Snippy after all, and that the name Snippy had just been the sire or male parent of the animal belonging to the mutilated mare, which was actually named Lady. But Snippy still remains the most common and favoured name when referring to the dead horse. The story of Snippy the horse was republished by the wider press and distributed nationwide, with this case being the first to feature speculation that extraterrestrial beings and unidentified flying objects, or UFOs, were associated with the animal mutilation phenomena. And by the 1st of December, later that same year of 1967, civilian UFO researchers from the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena, or NICAP for short, reported that the Snippy the horse case was, and I quote,
"neither a UFO case nor particularly mysterious."
On a short but interesting side note, the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena, or again NICAP for short, is an unidentified flying object or UFO research group that is most active in the United States from the 1950s to the 1980s. It remains active today primarily as an informational depository on the UFO phenomena. That same week of the 1st of December, Snippy's bones were turned over to a local veterinary for preservation, with a later press coverage mentioning that the horse had simply been shot in the rump. And again, according to the aforementioned press coverage, it was two students from the Alamosa State College who confessed several weeks after the case had been publicised to sneaking out into the pasture and shooting the horse themselves. A subsequent investigation of the mutilation of Snippy the horse by the Condon Committee concluded that, and I quote,
"there was no evidence to support the assertion that the horse's death was associated in any way to abnormal causes."
However, in 1968, Edward Condon, who was the leader of the committee, recalled that the Snippy the horse case was indeed the most bizarre report that his group had ever investigated. And later, in 1968, the story of Snippy the horse was further propagated by the paranormal author John Keel and sci-fi comics creator Otto Binder. On a couple of interesting side bits here, John Keel was an American journalist and influential ufologist who is probably best known as the author of the Mothman Prophecies, which, on a personal note, I highly recommend you read. And Otto Binder was an American author of science fiction, along with other non-fiction books and comics. He is best known as the co-creator of Supergirl, and for his many scripts for the Captain Marvel adventures and other stories involving the entire superhero Marvel family. He was prolific in the comic book field and is credited with writing over 4,400 stories across a variety of publishers under his own name, as well as more than 160 stories under the pen name of Eando Binder. The more I researched into this animal mutilation phenomena, the stranger the circumstances around each case became, with some cases reporting strange marks or imprints near the site where the carcasses were found. For example, in one incident, there were, within the body radius, several small holes that had been found seemingly, and I quote, punched in the ground with the bushes being absolutely flattened around it. And in Rio Arriba County in New Mexico in the June of 1976, and I quote, a trail of suction cup-like impressions was found leading from a mutilated 3-year-old cow, with these suction cup impressions being in a tripod form, 4 inches or 10 centimetres in diameter, 28 inches or 71 centimetres apart, and then disappeared at 500 feet or 150 metres from the cow's carcass. And if you remember, in the case of Snippy the horse, Harry King, along with Snippy's owners, Burl Lewis and his wife, when discovering the carcass, they reported that there was a total absence of blood in the animal and on the ground, along with an absence of any tracks around the dead horse, with even the horse's own tracks disappearing within 100 feet or 30 metres of the body. Laboratory reports carried out on some of the tissue samples of the mutilated animals have shown unusually high or low levels of vitamins or minerals, along with the presence of chemicals not normally found in animals. However, not all the mutilated animals display these anomalies, and those that do have slightly different anomalies from one another. And to be fair to the lab guys, on account of the time between the death and the necropsy, or autopsy, and the lack of background information on specific cattle, investigators have often found it impossible to determine if these variations or anomalies are connected to the animal's deaths or not. In one case, documented by the New Mexico Police and the FBI, an 11-month-old cross-Hereford colorless bull from Dulce, New Mexico, was found mutilated on the 24th of March 1978. The bull's carcass displayed classic mutilation signs, which included the removal of the rectum and sex organs, with what appeared to be, and I quote,
a sharp and precise instrument,
with its internal organs found to be inconsistent with a normal case of death followed by predation, and according to reports, both the liver and the heart were white and mushy, with both organs having the texture and consistency of peanut butter. As far as I can tell, at the time of writing this show anyway, there has only been a few cases of the animal mutilation phenomena that has been recorded to have happened to a human being. One such case is said to have happened when, in 1933, a photographic evidence surfaced of a mutilated male human corpse, that was found near the Guaraparangas reservoir of Sao Paulo in Brazil from 1988. However, still to this day, the victim's identity has been kept private. The theories of this poor man's death have ranged from a mundane criminal act of homicide to more fantastical speculation alleging alien abduction, mainly due to perceived similarities with the UFO-related animal mutilations. An autopsy report concluded that the wounds that this man endured occurred when he was still alive, and it was the associated pain that resulted in a cardiac arrest. However, in another independent investigation, it was later concluded that he died from natural causes. Well, if his death was due to natural causes, I just hope me or anyone I know, in fact even anyone I don't know, doesn't go in the same way. In folklore, animal mutilations have mainly been attributed to various cryptids, such as the chupacabra, which is also known as the legendary goatsucker, and similar creatures along that vein, with the aforementioned American journalist, ufologist and author of the Mothman Prophecies, John Keel, mentioning that he investigated animal mutilation cases that were reported in the upper Ohio River Valley around Gallipolis, which is located in Ohio, in 1966. So, what of Snippy the horse? Well, the skeletal remains of Snippy the horse are currently part of a UFO tourism attraction at the UFO Watchtower in the tiny town of Center, Colorado, in the United States.
Thank you all for taking the time out to listen to this episode of Mark's Unexplained World. In our next episode, show number 134, we are going to be looking at the dark truth behind Hansel and Gretel. Hansel and Gretel is a German fairy tale collected by the Brothers Grimm and published in 1812 as part of Grimm's fairy tales. However, the story of Hansel and Gretel itself was inspired by the Great Famine of 1315 to 1317 in Europe, causing a period of widespread cold weather and torrential rains to Europe that infected livestock and food shortages. And, as a result, this led to murder, child abandonment, and even cannibalism.
This show was written and researched by myself, Mark Hughes, and proofread and edited by Linda Hughes. The pronunciations of all the names, as usual, was all mine. The actors in this episode were Mark Hughes, Linda Hughes and Denise Poolar, with special thanks to Neil Packer and the staff of the Haunted Antiques Paranormal Research Centre in Hinckley. And of course, a big thank you to everyone for listening. We never run out of ideas here at the office for Mark's Unexplained World podcast, but if you know of any other intriguing stories under the Unexplained banner, including ufology, hauntings, disasters and any other sort of paranormal phenomena, as well as true crime, unsolved crime and missing people, just drop me a direct message and I will see what I can do. I will also include the name of the person who suggested the idea in the end credits of the podcast, if you want me to, of course. And again, just to add, if you are listening to this show on YouTube, please give us a review and a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And if you are listening on any of the podcast platforms, or any of the other podcast platforms I should say, again, give us a like and a follow. I thank you in advance. Mark's Unexplained World, because there's more to the paranormal than meets the third eye. And remember guys, keep it real, because being real is better than being perfect. This show and all its contents are covered by basic copyright of Mark the Medium.